these big assumptions are not innately bad or good. They're both sometimes, and they help you sometimes until they don't help you. And so being aware that they're there lets you understand a little bit more about what's driving you and why these things are happening. And so we went through, she's like, you know what? I'm not a flake. And all of a sudden, like, she started writing down ideas and, okay, this is what I should do. And this is how I could do it. And this is how I can make it easy. And this is how I can move forward and still be available for some of the unpredictable things that are part of my life right now. And so it was like all of a sudden the floodgates of ideas and forward momentum opened up. Hey, you leader, entrepreneur, business owner, solopreneur, whatever you call yourself, we know you're a visionary business builder, wealth seeker looking to combine a passion for doing good with leading consciously. It's time to shift from a traditional focus of pure wealth accumulation to one that integrates well-being and fulfillment. This is the Conscious Edge podcast, and I'm Alecia St. Germain, entrepreneur and coach. Along with my friend and wellness advocate, Jonathan Duggar, we're diving into what it means to embody radical self-acceptance while still evolving to lead with compassion and kindness. We're sharing our own experiences and expertise as we unpack imposter syndrome, perfectionism, procrastination, and all the other things that lead to burnout and keep you from experiencing pure joy, business growth, and maximum impact. This is a safe and supportive space to explore what it means to be a human creating wealth and building a business. You're here for a purpose, and it's time to shine your light. So here we go. Welcome back to the Conscious Edge podcast. I'm your host, Alecia St. Germain, and founder of the Conscious Edge, which is a personal development company that I founded to support women entrepreneurs really to find their journey in the business building and wealth creating process that is a lot more joyful, a lot less grindy, and really be able to start living this extraordinary, wonderful, filled up life now instead of waiting till they arrive at the destination. If you are new here, I am so excited that you're here, and I want to encourage you that if you really enjoy today's episode, please take a moment and hit that follow button. We come out with new episodes every single week, and I am normally joined by my co-host, Jonathan Duggar, who will be back here in a few episodes, and you're going to love him if you go back. You can binge listen to all of the wonderful advice that he has shared over time, and you'll get to know him through that as well. If you've been with us for a long time, I want to just tell you, I love you and I appreciate you and all of the support. Please take a moment and share this episode with someone who you think could benefit from it, because we really want to help more people find a way to create wealth and build businesses that is more holistic. And it's important to us. We know that the more people are successful and the more good they do in the world, the more that they'll give back in the world. But if you're doing it at the cost of burning out and feeling exhausted and it's just about the money, then that's not a way to create wealth. That's not a way to live a full life. So that being said, today what I want to dive into with you is around what to do when you are working on something and suddenly, or maybe not so suddenly, slowly over time, it feels like not the right thing. And you end up in a very stuck place, not knowing maybe how to move forward or what to do when you're working on a particular project or something new, maybe a new revenue stream or part of an new arena that you're jumping into, something that's newer to you that you had an idea around. So there's a couple different ways that this could play out. And I was sitting in a mastermind with some really powerful women that I get to meet with every single month. And they're just incredible. They're so smart, so brilliant. And we get together and we really talk about all parts of life, like personal, business, everything, depending on whatever is needed in that day. We fill each other's cups and it's incredible. And there was one of the women, and I have her permission to, I said, this is such an important thing. Do you mind if I make a podcast episode about this? And she was like, absolutely, of course. If it helps other people, absolutely. But I am going to keep some of the details of her business and the details a little bit more vague than I normally would, just out of respect for her. Because sometimes going through and creating a breakthrough can be a very personal thing, and it can be very vulnerable to go through that. And so while I am very comfortable putting it all out on a podcast and working through things and sharing with you what I've learned, it can be uncomfortable for other people. So I am going to keep things a little bit more vague. But we're in this mastermind, and she's been working on a project for quite some time now. And I don't think it was all of a sudden, but it was just like life started lifing. And it made it so the project she was working on had to be put on the back burner. Things like family members getting ill. And then, it would be like, oh, I think everything's going to be cleared out of the way. Like, we've got everything settled now. I'm going to be able to work on this. And then like she would get sick, or something would happen, like a car would break down, or something would happen, like literally life would life. And so she was starting to feel like, I don't know how to plan to move forward because I don't know what's going to happen next. And sometimes when you feel stuck, and let me step back for 1 second. So I have had situations where I have worked on projects before. About a year ago, I started to formulate this like a quiz that I had wanted, that I thought would be really powerful around how people set their goals, and some different goal setting personalities that are out there that I've observed. And so I started to say, well, wouldn't it be really cool if I could like build this quiz, and then it would help people identify how they set their goals, and maybe some of the sticking points and some of the things that maybe get them stuck from reaching those goals, and give them, recommendations and things like that. And I started to work on it. And as I spent time writing through the profiles and really digging into things, I got a ton of clarity, and I started to draw some new conclusions, just as I was pulling research from different clients that I had. And so I reached some new conclusions that made it not such a great idea anymore. Like, I probably could have forced it to be an idea. I probably could have forced it all the way through to finish. But my perspective became, well, I have some new information, and I'm not sure that this is as relevant to my target audience as what I thought. So as I was doing the market research, as I was talking to them, it just wasn't maybe as relevant. Now, everything that I did during that time that I was researching things and figuring things out, I use it in my talks. I use it in my training. It made me a better coach. I got a lot of insight into some things that I hadn't had before. And I saw another way forward. There was like new information came to me, and now I was able to make some different decisions. It was time to make some different decisions that continued to move me forward. So I'm not talking about situations where you are working on something and you get new information and then you decide to go a different direction or make a different decision, or use the information or use what you're doing in a different way than you originally intended. When you're in a situation like that, where it just maybe something feels a little bit off and you have some new information, but yet you have this forward progress, that's not the same as being stuck. That's not the same as pivoting over and over again because something feels off. It's a very subtle distinction. And that's why I'm taking the time to really go through that with you, because it's a very subtle distinction between making some decisions, especially if you're someone who struggles with making decisions. It can feel like decisions are life or death. Like if I make the wrong decision, then it's game over. And sometimes you have to make a decision and start the process forward before you get enough information to make a new decision or a different decision. So this was very much in forward energy when I decided, yeah, I'm going to scrap this project. This doesn't make sense for right now, but I'm going to use all the information going forward. In this situation with this woman, she felt literally stuck and not knowing how to move forward or plan, because what she was telling herself was, how can I move forward with this idea when I don't know what the next unpredictable life event is going to be that's going to throw me off course again? So how can I possibly plan when I have all these things that keep being so unpredictable? Now, she has a really successful business and she's been around for a very long time. She's been in business for a very long time. So she's not like new to business by any stretch. She has definitely like beat all of the odds that go into entrepreneurship of like how many businesses fail in their first 5 years. She's well beyond that. And so this is just a new revenue stream that she was creating in her business, and another offering that she saw a need in the marketplace. If you've ever had that situation where you're like, oh, like I see this place, this market, this segment of the population or this area of the market that isn't being served the way it needs to be served. And I've got this unique ability or this unique offering to fill that gap. So she saw a gap in the marketplace and she wanted to fill it. So she has been working on it for so long and done so much work into it. And now suddenly she's like, I don't know how to move forward because like my life is so unpredictable. I don't think it's possible. And it was really messing with her. And when you're in these settings where you're getting support from peers and other people, it is, for some people, it can be really uncomfortable to ask for help. And I know that a lot of the people who follow this podcast, a lot of the people that are surrounded by me, oftentimes they have had a life upbringing where it is all on my shoulders. If something is going to be done, it has to be done by me. I cannot depend on other people. I have to do it all. And it's not from a place of ego. It's from a place of self-protection. Like if I depend on other people, they might let me down and my business is at stake. So I can't. And so when it comes time to start asking for help, it can be really uncomfortable for people. And so, as we're sitting there, I'm sensing like she's definitely, this is hard. It's emotional. She's just like, she just keeps saying, I feel like it's not right. I feel like it's not right. I feel like I'm not excited about this thing anymore. I feel like something's off. And so I said to her, listen, if you quit something every time it doesn't feel right, you'll never get anywhere, because feelings are temporary. Feelings come into your body as a flag. Hey, something's amiss. And they stay there for 90 seconds. And then at some point, after that point, they have to be reaffirmed by a thought. There's research around this. And so they have to be reaffirmed by a thought. Now, sometimes what people don't realize is these thoughts are unconscious. They live in the unconscious mind and you don't even know that they're there. And so if you don't have access, if you don't have a way to get to those unconscious thoughts, then you just kind of walk around going, oh, I feel like something's off. I feel like something's not right. And it's like, this is my gut feeling. But how do you know the difference between a gut feeling that you're unsafe and because there's a reason for that. Like that's your body has these self-protective mechanisms that are there to keep you safe, to keep bad things from happening. You know, when you're walking down a dark alley, if something doesn't feel right, like your brain will tell you, or if you've ever had situations where you just decided to take a different way home, those little intuitive hits. And so an intuitive hit will oftentimes, it'll be a lot more, it's not meant to keep you stuck. Let me put it that way. When you're having these intuitive hits, like, oh, I think maybe this might be the next thing to do, it has a very peaceful, calm, like not stuck sort of feeling to it. But for her, like she's really stuck, right? So I said to her, do you want to create a breakthrough around this? And that's one of the things I've learned in coaching is that sometimes people don't want to be coached. Like they don't want to break through. They want to stay in that stuck place. They want to stay safe. And it is 100% every person's choice as to whether they want to stay stuck or not. But it's important, I think, in this scenario when to ask, you know, hey, do you want to get unstuck? And she says yes, because that starts to get the brain on board with where her mind needs to go in order to figure out what is going on here. What is my next steps? And so I use a coaching methodology called immunity to change, and it can be very complex. I don't want to say it's complex. It's actually a very simple process that I talk about in previous episodes. I think it's in one of the very beginning episodes. I kind of walk through what is immunity to change. So I'll make sure I link that up here in the episode. But it's a very simple mapping process. But typically when I run a workshop, it's going to take us 3 hours to get through the whole workshop. But what I've also learned is how to pull this coaching methodology through and do it in a talk style that takes a lot less time for very specific issues. And so what I did, and I'm sharing this with you because if you are in the same scenario right now where you have something that you're working on and you're feeling kind of stuck, if you stop and answer the questions that I'm about to share with you, you may very well figure out what is it that is causing you to be stuck and feel like this thing is not the right thing anymore. So if we depend on feelings, this is what I was saying earlier when I lost my train of thought. So real life, everybody, real life, not overly produced. I'm just talking here and just like normal, I lose my train of thought, right? So if we only depend on our feelings, because these unconscious drivers are driving our feelings, what will happen is something you're up to. You may be moving along with an idea, no problem. And then when it is time to execute, stuff comes up, life happens, and it starts to feel like it's not the right thing. And no matter what you do and how you move forward, you always get to the same place. No matter how many times you restart it, you always get to the same place, and then you feel like something's not right. That's a really good indication that there's an unconscious belief in the back of your mind that you aren't aware of that is telling you the actions you're about to take are unsafe. And so if you are in the same sort of scenario somewhere in your life, you can use these same questions that I asked her. So the very first thing that I did was I had her imagine moving forward on her project. And I said, I want you to take a moment and just tell us, what would it look like to move forward on this project? And in present tense, she started to describe what it would look like to move forward on that project. And so what that does, when you start to imagine yourself doing the thing that you want to be working on, what happens is it activates the same parts of your brain that would be activated if you were actually doing it. So if a marathon runner runs a race or a marathon runner thinks about and imagines running a race, it will activate the same parts of the brain. So we get her brain into a state of pretending like she is going through the tasks that it would take to move this project forward. And then she got to a point where I could see like her brain went, like you could see on her face, like her brain went blank. And this is a really good, and maybe if you ever have had this where your brain all of a sudden goes blank and then all of a sudden pops, I don't know, out of your mouth, or your brain will go blank and you're like, oh, I have writer's block, or you'll get distracted and pick up your phone. Like something will happen when you start to stop that train of thought. And so right when she got really quiet, I said, okay, what are you feeling right there? What are you worried about right there? And so she thought like, oh, what am I worried about? And she was worried that she wouldn't be able to follow through and that she would flake on people. And so I said, okay. And so if you don't follow through, or she was really worried she couldn't follow through. That's right. She was really worried she couldn't follow through. And I said, okay, so if you can't follow through, what does that mean? And so the idea in ITC, and immunity to change, is that you're looking for what is the belief, what is the big assumption that your brain has made up that is causing you to feel the way you feel and act the way you act in order to relieve that feeling. I said, okay, so if you can't follow through, what does that mean? What are you making that mean? And she said, well, that I would let people down and I'm a flake. I said, okay, so what that looks like in big assumption terms is if I let people down, or I'm sorry, if I can't follow through, even if it's not my fault, if I cannot follow through 100% perfectly, basically, then I'll let people down and I'm a flake, which would cause her to feel stuck when it is time for her to move to the next step and actually schedule things and execute and launch this new product that she's offering, because life recently had been very unpredictable for her. And there were things that she actually had to reschedule because she didn't have the capacity with being ill and having family situations arise, which, by the way, it was very normal, understandable things that happened. Something that you or I or anybody you know just has these moments where things get hard. And when you work for someone else, when you work for a corporate company that gives you ill time, vacation time, time off, FMLA, those types of things, while those things are very stressful for people, I'm not saying that, I'm not discrediting corporate. My husband has a job where he gets vacation time and ill time and paid time off that he accrues, whereas entrepreneurs don't get that. And when they can't show up to work, there's this very deep sense of like, I'm letting people down. I'm letting my clients down. I'm letting contractors down. I'm like, whoever it is that does business with you, sellers, buyers, whoever it is, your clients, I'm letting people down. And so it's almost like this sense of responsibility that entrepreneurs have, that you don't have any space to be a human being because of the way maybe your business is put together, or because of how committed entrepreneurs and business owners are to their businesses, that we don't have those sick time. Now, obviously, the ideal is to go ahead and have people in place, and she does have employees, but have people in place that can take over when you aren't well. And that's what happened for her. She had people in her business that supported her while these things were happening. But my point is, none of the things that came up were excuses. They were circumstances. If we look at circumstances just being things in life that happen, completely understandable things. And everybody around her was very supportive and understanding. And her brain doesn't know the difference between maybe past experiences that happened long, long time ago when, she was young, and today, these normal circumstances where it isn't that she was letting people down or that she was being a flake. She was being attentive to other parts of life besides business, because we are whole humans. We are having this whole human experience in life. But her brain was telling her, if you schedule something, something's going to happen. You're not going to be able to follow through. People are going to be let down and you're going to be a flake. And so that unconscious dialogue was happening in her brain. And it was what was causing that freeze for her. And so we went back through the recent evidence and I said, okay, let's go through the evidence. Now that's the next step, right? Is you got to go look at the evidence and say, like, is this really a thing? And I said, okay, some things happened in your recent past. Did you let people down? She said, no, my employees handled things and, I did have to reschedule a couple of things and people were maybe a little disappointed, but everybody was super understanding. I said, okay, so were you a flake? She's like, you know what? I'm not a flake. I'm not a flake at all. In fact, this big assumption that runs in her brain likely also causes her to almost over deliver and not respect boundaries as well as she could. And these are all things that we've all talked about and she's aware of and everything like that. But it's a work in progress. And just like all of us, we have different things that we have to constantly attend to. And we get just a little bit better at them each time the situation comes up. And the more awareness that we have, we get just a little bit better each time. And so it's not about completely shifting and changing overnight. And suddenly she's like, oh, I no longer worry about being a flake and I no longer worry about letting people down. That's not it. It's just that she's aware of a filter now where she can say, okay, am I being flaky? Do I need to commit a little bit more? And maybe I really am, and I need to put some extra effort in, which is probably not the case. It's really more the opposite of, I'd have more energy if I would actually have some healthy boundaries with some of my clients and not let them completely run my life and jump to as soon as they need anything. But also those things that make her really successful, they're also the things that make her really successful because she does go above and beyond for her clients and she is really good to everybody around her and she cares deeply about other people because she cares about that's her reputation. And so these big assumptions are not innately bad or good. They're both sometimes, and they help you sometimes until they don't help you. And so being aware that they're there lets you understand a little bit more about what's driving you and why these things are happening. And so we went through, she's like, you know what? I'm not a flake. And all of a sudden, she started writing down ideas and, okay, this is what I should do. And this is how I could do it. And this is how I can make it easy. And this is how I can move forward and still be available for some of the unpredictable things that are part of my life right now. And so it was all of a sudden the floodgates of ideas and forward momentum opened up that helped her take this idea that this project she'd been working on and now start to adapt it to the new information that she had about how life might be a little bit more unpredictable for her. And so now the forward momentum was back. And so just understanding what's underneath all of that and what's in the way there makes it so that the creativity comes back online. And now it's not about something not feeling right. What didn't feel right to her was, gosh, am I going to end up being a flake? Am I going to end up letting people down? And in her mind, she thought it was something about the project. She thought, well, maybe this project isn't right. Maybe this project isn't going to help people. Maybe this is my intuition telling me like, this is not the thing I'm supposed to be doing. When in fact, it was an unconscious thought that was making her feel insecure that, gosh, I can't deliver. What if I can't deliver? Those are two very different things. And so I asked her, and I said this earlier, but I asked her, I was like, you have to let me make a podcast about this because everybody has a stuck point. Everybody, I don't care where you are in your business, you have a stuck point that comes up. And it can be far on into your success. It can be at the very beginning. But this is why I do the work that I do, because there's so much good and talent in you. There's so much talent in you. And there's so many great ideas out there that will really make our world a better and more connected and beautiful, creative, beautiful business, wealth, all of it. It's not one or the other. It's not just about intelligence or just about beauty or just about one thing. It's everything about our life, art, math, music, science, physics, like all of it has a place in our world. And so it always makes me feel sad sometimes when I hear about one type of intelligence being valued more than another type of intelligence, because it is what colors our world beautiful. And so everybody has a stuck place. And this kind of work is about creating awareness so that you can discern the difference between what intuitively doesn't feel right, and then you actually have evidence and thought that supports that your intuition is right on, and now you go a different direction, but still forward in some way, versus this doesn't feel right, and I don't know what to do. And I'm stressed, and I'm losing sleep, and I'm feeling like a failure, and all the other things that come up for people when they feel stuck. So, with that being said, I highly recommend, if you resonated with today, that you go to consciousedge.com/training, learn a little bit more about what this work looks like, how it can help you in your life, where it might apply, because I think everybody, if it was up to me, everybody would do this kind of work, because when you are self-aware and you understand and are responsible for the results that you create, and you have this way of looking at problems and solving for them and keeping that forward momentum, and you're not participating in blame and shame and guilt, I know that that is a path to progress. That is a path to creating a world that is less divided, more unified, working together, creating a good place to live, a kinder place to live. And so I would love for you to consider what this work could look like for your life. So with all that being said, I'm sending you so much love. And if Jonathan were here, he would say, be well. Thanks for listening to the Conscious Edge podcast. Make sure you subscribe and take a moment to be kind and share this episode with someone you care about. Leave a review to help us bring more compassionate leaders building businesses and creating wealth to the table. And for show notes, head over to consciousedge.com/podcast. This podcast and the linked materials are presented solely for general information, educational, and entertainment purposes and should not be taken as personal or medical advice or any kind of mental health treatment. Please consult a medical or mental health professional if you feel you need such services. Please be advised that all investing and entrepreneurial endeavors involve risk, and the use of the education and information on this podcast and linked materials is at the user's own risk.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.